Welcome to the Weekly Leadership Experience, a place for leaders to get inspired, be challenged, and grow. I am your host, Reshad Oberlander. Let's get started. Today's episode of the Weekly Leadership Experience is brought to you by my 7-day Leadership Growth Challenge. It's a free challenge that I've created, and it's delivered by email over the course of 7 days. I've created 7 compelling questions to challenge various aspects of your leadership, the way you lead, and why you lead. Go to ReshadOberlander.com and scroll down until you find the 7-day leadership challenge, or look for the link in the show notes. And now, on with the show. Welcome to this special Mythbusters episode of the Weekly Leadership Experience. I want to thank you for being here today and thank you for listening. Real quick, if you haven't already, head over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It helps the podcast grow and gives it the opportunity for other listeners to find it. Today, I want to talk to you about some leadership myths. These are some things that I've pulled from my own journey and experience in life, and some things that are perhaps true, perhaps not true, and I'm going to leave it up to you to decide whether you would say that the myth is busted or whether it's a true myth. And these may be some things that resonate really well with you and you can reflect on in your own life and see that those were things that you can see and believe and agree with, or maybe you can see that they were not true and you want to change your thinking on, and maybe that you can see them at play in the company that you're a part of, and perhaps you're a business leader and you can see that these myths are at play. So myth number 1 is, this is what success looks like. And what I mean by that is that oftentimes there can be a fairly clear image of what a successful person in a business is. They look like this, they talk like this, they behave like this, their results look like this, and those are the people who ultimately become promoted and become, the directors and VIPs and everything in the business. And that's totally fine. That is often many of the requirements for successful leadership out in the world. But other times I think that it is not necessarily true. One of the things that was said to me at a couple of points in my career was along the lines of, if you acted more like this person or spoke more like this person, you would get further in this business. Or if you were more like so-and-so, you would do better. And that advice can be helpful at times if it is true to your nature. Now, I made the mistake of taking that advice and trying to apply it to me and emulate the person who was being held as the example that I should follow, and it backfired because it was energy draining. It was difficult to maintain, and it was because that trying to emulate this person was not true to my nature, and trying to emulate the characteristics of that individual and trying to copy what it is that made them successful, not being congruent to my nature, was holding me back and actually making it harder for me to be successful. And trying to be someone that I was not was absolutely detrimental to my mental health and to my actual success. Now, if success looks a certain way in a business and that is what is required for successful leadership, then that is fine. My challenge here is that if you are an employee in a business and that this is the model for success and this is what success looks like and this is what is going to get you promoted, and you have the desire to be promoted, if you don't fit that mold and it's not true to your nature, you may have to come to the point where you reevaluate whether you are still a right fit for the business and the business is the right fit for you. And it's not a go out and quit your job moment. It's a, reflection moment. Are you the type of person that will be successful in this business based on what is expected and what is the image of being successful? My challenge to the business leaders is, are the people that become successful in your business successful because of the right criteria? Is the image of success the image that you truly want to be associated with successful leadership in your business? And is it something that needs to be reevaluated and kind of looked at in terms of, are we giving the best possible chance to everyone to be successful in our business? So, what do you think? Myth number one, this is what success looks like. Is it true or not true? Myth number two, leaders are always strong. And what I mean by that is that a leader always presents a strong face. A leader is very flat emotionally and is very kind of close fisted, plays their cards close to the chest, is not very open, is not super approachable. And this presents a very strong, rigid kind of a leader. And again, certain things that I have run into in my career and in my experience in life is, being told that you don't engage your team in feedback because it presents that you might be weak as a leader. You don't share openly with your team because you might be perceived as weak as a leader. So, strength as a leader needs more definition. Strength as a leader, to me, does not mean that you're a close-fisted, plays your cards close to the chest, emotionally detached kind of an individual. That's not to say that you have to be an open book and that you have to bare your soul to everyone, but being okay with your emotions and being okay with sharing with your team and actually being engaged in a feedback process and being open to engaging with your team on a meaningful level, I think is strength. Strength is not, to me, not admitting you're wrong. Strength to me is not sticking to your guns at all costs. Strength to me is not being the most powerful person in the room. Strength to me is not being unable to apologize. So, this myth is going to come down to what you believe strength is, but I think that in the modern leadership and management culture, and what a lot of people out there are teaching and sharing, is that strong leaders are emotionally connected leaders. Strong leaders are leaders who are willing to own their faults. Strong leaders are leaders who are, authentic and vulnerable. And, authentic and vulnerable can be overplayed sometimes too. It's not an excuse to be just blunt and rude and disrespectful and call that authenticity. That's not authenticity. Authenticity is being real and genuine with your people, not hiding behind a wall of imagined strength and bravery. So, myth number two, what do you think? Leaders are always strong. Myth number three, being a leader means being lonely. You've probably heard the phrase, it's lonely at the top. And that's a very common and accepted belief, I think, of leadership. I think that a lot of people believe that being the leader, being the manager, being the person at the top of the totem pole or top of the pyramid or whatever your analogy might be, means being lonely. First of all, let me say being at the top of the pyramid or the totem pole is not ultimately my idea of leadership. You don't sit atop something, you serve the organization or you serve the team that you're in. But that's an aside and that's a little rant. However, being lonely as a leader, I think, drives a lot of misconceptions about leadership, and I think it drives a lot of misconceptions both from team members and from leaders about themselves. And leadership and neither life should be lonely. We were not made to be solitary beings. We're not wired that way. Most of us enjoy, if not crave, human connection. And so as a leader, if you truly believe that leadership is lonely and you're on this on your own, I would suggest to you and challenge you to rethink that and consider building a framework of people in your life who you can do leadership with and who you can do life with. They can be trusted individuals, mentors, coaches, friends, colleagues, family members. There's a number of different people that you can draw on your life to build a support network, to bounce ideas off of, to share burdens with, to talk and just share and be and share life with. So leadership being lonely, I think, is absolutely one that I'm going to call busted, because there's no reason for it. There's no reason for leadership to be lonely. There's every reason to build a support network. There is every reason to have trusted people in your life who you can rely on for decision making and sharing of ideas and back and forth conversation, and every opportunity for you to go out and do that. And I have been in the camp of trying to do it all myself and trying to be the strong leader and trying to be, do it on my own. And it's not fun. And when you don't have a support network and you're in a tough place, you can't really lean on yourself. It doesn't really work. So absolutely, by all means, build that support network. So that wraps up the 3 myths that I wanted to talk about today. The first myth being that this is what success looks like. The second myth being leaders are always strong. And the third myth being that leadership is lonely. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Are these true or not true? And I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments. So comment on the blog post or hit me up on social media. I'm at R.E. Oberlander on all the social media platforms. I would love to hear what you think of this episode. In the meantime, stay awesome. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, would you head over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, leave me a rating, leave me a review, and share this with a friend. It spreads the word and helps the podcast grow. You can also find me on social media at R.E. Oberlander. Until next time, stay awesome.